So this is midnight 15 GMT on Sunday the 26th of July 2020. We are going to introduce the exclusive diagnostic update on the Newham recorder. Newham in the London Borough of Tower Hamlets, which was created as the most racist local newspaper in London, if not England, by Tom Duncan, who dominated it for 40 years. And the Newham Recorder colluded with the racist culture for all that time. And Newham being one of the most diversely populated boroughs, the impact in the creation, generation, and perpetration and perpetuation of the pro-racist culture in Newham was devastating to the community that tried to settle in the borough during that time. Now, in the early part of this year, 2020, the new owners, Archant, have been actually pursuing the confession that the Newham Recorder and other local titles that the Archant organization owns is not functioning to serve the news and media needs of the local communities. Although they are saying that the title Newham Recorder and similar have been making valuable contributions to the local communities, the fact is that they have not been making positive contributions to the local communities. And the result is that for more than 10 years now, Newham Recorder, Archant, has been not allowing the ABC Circulation Bureau, Audit Bureau of Circulation, ABC, which audits the actual circulation of print newspapers and media. Because the excuse has been that the ABC figures are not representative of the actual reach of the Newham Recorder and similar. But the truth is that the Newham Recorder has been selling hardly any copies to justify its being in print or in business. It has been a giveaway paper for most of the last decade, increasingly. And the fact is that the Newham Recorder is not considered a source of news by most people on solid local issues. And the biggest confession came in a series of telephone conversations with me by the current editor, who said that she could not allow any news stories to be investigated for publication by the Newham Recorder because they haven't got any staff. She repeatedly said the same thing, overlooking the fact that you don't have to have staff when the evidence has been investigated, corroborated, verified, and made available to you. All you have to do is to put the finding to the particular subject of the story, in this case, the Newham Council. So I will come to this in later editions of this particular diagnostic update. Currently, the Wikipedia entry on Newham Recorder is actually 10 years old. I mean, it has not been updated in the last many years. And Lindsay Jones is not mentioned as the editor, which she is. And it is still Lorraine King who is mentioned as the editor. And there are other Wikipedia inaccuracies on the entry. And there is absolutely no mention of Tom Duncan being embattled for most of his period in the post of dictatorial editor in battles after battles after battles with the National Union of Journalists because of the Neom recorders, racist, persistently racist, inciting hateful role. And it was probably as I said, the most racist local newspaper anywhere in London, if not in England. And Tom Duncan refused to apologize for publishing racist article, inflammatory front pages, inflammatory splashes, inflammatory editorials, and suppressing most of the news about fighting against racism that the people were trying to get attention to in the community. And this happened during the worst decades of racist attacks that people suffered in East London, across East London. And Tom Duncan took active part, proud part in fomenting racist hatred and jingoism and nationalism. And he was, in effect, the propaganda head of the racist, all the racist parties and groups and factions. The Newham Recorder currently has absolutely no news about anything in the community. It is the nearest to the plastic publication. And the fact that it is locked down has meant that this paper is no longer even worth picking up at any free distribution point because it is not there. Most of the print papers, that, like the London Evening Standard, are not available in the kiosks and other places where it used to be, or those used to be left for people to pick up. We'll come to the review and examination of the evidence of the London Evening Standard and the circulation figure that is claimed for it in the series. But Newham Recorder is important in this as the introductory diagnostic item because the lack of accountability by the local council to the community in Newham, as evident in the 16 years as elected mayor by Robin Wales, is in the fact that there was hardly any news of any contention that was critical of Robin Wales's behavior. So the national newspapers, actually in Britain, Fleet Street, relies heavily on what the locally based geographical titles say about their local communities. And as the new recorder hardly ever said anything critical about Robin Wales as the mayor of Newham for 16 years, there is hardly any news about Newham being a worst performing local council for 16 years duration in the national newspapers. There is no record, there is nothing at all, except when there is a little murmur of internal so-called dissent in the Labour Party, which is absolutely ridiculously flimsy and unoriginal and unrigorous. And we'll come to that again when we go chapter and verse into the behavior of the Newham Recorder, Newham Council, and the Fleet Street and their reliance on the local papers. Now, Newham Recorder's owners, Archant, current owners, Archant have started a campaign that includes on the online stories, at the end of the online stories, a plea for readers, viewers to make a donation, financial contribution to the paper. And this is significant because Matt Kelly, who is the digital contents editor of the Archant titles, said that no newspaper, none of the titles, including the Newham Recorder, has got a God-given right to be forever funded and forever be printed and be allowed in circulation. So that is the most significant confession made by the Archant, that its local papers, and especially the likes of Neom Recorder, had failed, they had outlived their relevance to the local community. And the point is that when Tom Duncan gave way to Colin Granger, who was the next editor for another few years after Duncan left the post, Colin Granger didn't change the paper, although he made pretentious noises about changing, but he never did. And even after the editor's post has become ridiculously artificial, the current holder of the post, Lindsay Jones, is even more ridiculously unbelievable. She says that there is no story. If the paper doesn't have any full-time staff reporter, which is what she claims, that she says that there is no reporter, then there is no story. End of story. That is what she said. And I'm saying this on the record here so that Lindsay Jones can check it and deny what I'm saying. I cannot believe that she will take the risk of denying it because she is on the record, and I have made several calls to her in the last few months, and I have asked her questions about why rigorously researched, independently verified, corroborated news items about the corruption, incompetence, lack of democracy, lack of accountability, and abuse of resources by Newham Council, these are not published. Why are they not published? She has had no answer except to say that Newham Recorder has no staff. And as I said, I'm saying it on the record and inviting Lindsay Jones to deny saying this to me. Moving on to other headline items, again about the newspapers. The Friday's newspaper, the Friday the 25th of July 2020, I shall pick some and record some of the front pages here, the visual front pages. This is the Rupert Murdoch's Sun of Friday the 25th of July 2020. Now, the fact that they have got a headline about Harry and Meghan and the royal family shows that the perception in the Fleet Street tabloid and in Fleet Street generally and the Boris Johnson supporting brigade is that the coronavirus is behind them or behind us. That is not the case, but that's what they're doing. They're trying to divert attention. That's the first thing. The second thing is that the content of this particular spin is misleading because it shows the picture of a joint picture of Harry and Meghan, but the headlines are not about them. It is about the role of Harry and Meghan's book Revenge, bitter pair given no credit, jealous Wills and Charles got top jobs, shunned in backseat after Meg exit. Now this is the in the middle two lines are about the Charles and Wills being jealous. Now this is very rare confession by the Sun, which has been running a crusade of hatred against Meghan and Harry. But that is the front page of the Sun on Friday, the 25th of July 2020. And this is the internal pages 4 and 5 of the same edition, and it is about the so-called book. And this is also in the other papers like the Daily Mail of Friday and the Daily Star, but we'll have a look at the Daily Mail first. We can get that. So the Daily Mail has got Why Harry and Meghan quit the royal family. That's got on this side, that is, it has got why Harry and Meghan quit the royal family. And inside, on pages again, like the Sun, pages 4 and 5, they've got, I gave up my entire life for the royal family. It is so said. Bombshell new book lays bare rift that led to Brexit and claims Duchess said. Duchess meaning Meghan said that she gave up her entire life for the royal family, and it is very sad what happened. And the book is being reasonably accurately kind of quoted here. They have no choice because that's the book. They can say that they're quoting from the book. And it has been said elsewhere that Meghan and Harry didn't really contribute anything directly to the book, so called. And on the pages next, on the Daily Mail, pages 6 and 7, it is the right wing, conservative, big business agenda that is ordering the workers now get back to work. So they are actually declaring that the coronavirus threat is over. And this is exactly the mentality that they showed at the beginning when they refused to take it seriously and allowed the laissez-faire attitude to continue for weeks before they admitted that the country was suffering one of the most widespread dangerous diseases in the pandemic anywhere on the face of the earth. And they're inventing, making up things and publishing rubbish, suggesting that you could make up things and make the coronavirus go away. This is the Daily Mail on the Friday, the 25th of July 2020. This is the story, absolute rubbish. This is denying the very strongly persistent disease, and they're saying that it could be simple, cheap solution to Britain's COVID nightmare. How can they do that? And there is this other story, investigation, which has got a picture on pages 10 and 11, picture of Ben Goldsmith with his sister Jemima Goldsmith. It is about the typical of metropolitan eco-zealots. This seer of Goldsmith dynasty dreamed of bringing wild nature to his Somerset estate. Now he is being investigated by police amid accusations. He has broken all the rules after admitting he lied and lied again to furious local farmers. And that is the story on the Daily Mail. Friday, the 25th of July 2020. Now, this is Jemima Goldsmith featuring in a story about her brother Ben, lying and misleading and all the rest of it. And so therefore, and there is a story on page 12 of the Daily Mail, shame of charities facing hundreds of abuse claims a year. It's a series of claims of sexual abuse, rape of children by charities. And there is a story about this. I mean, the Daily Mail has got, I wasn't at his bedside. I wasn't at his cremation. Our relationship was complicated. That's the first interview since the death of his father from COVID. The new Lord Bath poignantly reveals his regrets. And There is this story about the searing agony of PC's widow as teenagers are found guilty of dragging him to death but cleared of murder. Now, the biggest story in the two-page 18 and 19 is a promotion, a propaganda by Andrew Pierce and Richard Kay promoting Boris Johnson as he allegedly celebrates his first year. So these are the stories that are being fed to the masses in Britain by the tabloids, by the mass circulations of our papers even now. And there is no problem, absolutely no problem as far as they are concerned in the pandemic, in the government's response, in the selling of crucial NHS resources to the American conglomerates that have been actually on the table, that those proposals and the agenda actions and the bill last Monday that went through the House of Commons, because the Conservatives have a majority of nearly 80, will make sure that the National Health Service in Britain, if that is allowed, the National Health Service will be completely killed off, and the privatization of the so-called health business will be revived, and the public, the society, the existence of society, which Margaret Thatcher denied, will be taken a real kind of a long distance into reality, realization, and society will be pushed back into the darkness. The alternative, headline-wise, is provided by a joke newspaper called the Morning Star. I will come to that, why I'm calling it a joke newspaper. But here are the headlines of the Morning Star this week. This week's Morning Star, and this is the Thursday, the 23rd of July, Morning Star, 23rd of July 2020. This one is Wednesday, the 22nd of July 2020. And this is the Tuesday, 21st of July, which is Hands of Our Health. Corbyn joins call to protect the NHS from trade bill talks. Now that's the Morning Star published. The date is the day after the bill was pushed through the House of Commons by Boris Johnson and his MPs. So that's logically the headline on the front page of the Morning Star, dated the day after, although the Morning Star is actually printed within hours of the afternoon of the previous day. So they had the copy of the bill and they had it ready. Back to work plan punishes parents. This is the Morning Star of the 20th of July, the day the NHS sell-off bill was pushed through, but the headline is something different, slightly different. Labour slams PMs rush back to workplaces amid lack of childcare support. Now, this is the Morning Star, which is hardly available anywhere. It is on the record as the only left-wing daily English language newspaper in the world. That is what they boast about. And this is something that is a joke because it hasn't got any substance. Hardly any news about the community's actions anywhere in England. This is a story about, on page 5 of the Morning Star of Monday, the 20th of July, which says COVID-19 fallout. Big issue founder launches alliance against evictions. Now, this is by Alan Jones. A new alliance has been formed to protect renters from eviction. and to keep people in jobs through the COVID-19 crisis. Lord John Bird, founder of the street magazine The Big Issue, launches the initiative today with a warning that hundreds of thousands of people are facing homelessness unless the government takes action. Now, this is the Morning Star that refuses. This is the Morning Star that refuses to link local councils with causing homelessness historically, and it is not changing its agenda. But the fact that John Bird, who launched the Big Issue, is now a member of the House of Peers, is the proof of the ridiculous irrelevance of the pretense slogan that people like him are socially committed and principled. The Big Issue has been promoted for almost 20 years, I think, as an original initiative helping the homeless. But there has been no examination, never, of why people are made homeless, how the local councils cause homelessness, how the local courts collude with the agenda of keeping a proportion of people homeless. And that is in the context of the international legal obligations, treaty obligations of the UK, staggering, because the treaties, all the treaties for equality and fairness and all the rest of it, demand that people are given basic rights. And one of the first basic rights is the right to housing, a home. And none of the Labour Party leadership, including Jeremy Corbyn, including the last ones that were right wing, but were never held to account for their silence on this causal link between councils and high numbers of people being deprived of homes. And we are saying that this is the tip of the iceberg of the denial. And the tip of the iceberg of the denial include the actual iceberg, includes everything. Everything that Corbyn says the Labour Party's founding aims were addressed to, everything has been ignored. The only thing that Corbyn has not ignored is the cultivation of himself as the champion of the many. And we shall come to that in due course and when we update on his crusading online promotions this week and in the past week, and how his bots and other kind of mechanical or mechanized supporters are thwarting the creation of a solidarity movement against the current excesses and denials and wrongs being done by the current government in the UK. Back to Tower Hamlets and Shamima Begum and what we said in the last edition about Frederick Forsyth talking about Shamima Begum's Magna Carta rights. Now, this is very important. None of the Labour Party MPs has referred to the Magna Carta. Now, Frederick Forsyth is a right-winger. He is not supposed to be talking about the Magna Carta rights of a jihadi bride suspect, whatever. And this is actually consistent with the disgraceful negligence of the Labour Party throughout the decades to uphold human rights and to protect people's universal human rights. Frederick Forsyth is not talking about excusing Shamima Begum. He's saying, look at her legal rights, the rights that are enshrined in the very British constitutional foundation, which is what the Magna Carta is cited as, used as, mentioned as. So the Labour Party hasn't done that, and there has been no mention of any of it by the Green Party's sole MP, Caroline Lucas, in the House of Commons. And there is nothing from the Democrats or Lib Dems in the House of Commons. Not anything that I have noticed. Neither what's his name? Ed Davey is the acting leader, nor their Palestinian, this is a misleading tag, Palestinian MP, Laila Moran. Laila is actually not a Palestinian in the strict sense when defined the demography and everything. Laila is a Western, non-Muslim Palestinian of half Palestinian extraction. So culturally and in terms of the overall indoctrination, Laila is not a Palestinian, just like other Christian Palestinians were given token positions in the past. And I think that Laila Moran is pursuing a careerist strategy, which means that she leaves out most of the Palestinian substance. But she mentions Palestine as being part of her background when it suits her CB promotion. So the Labour Party has not done anything about human rights. The Lib Dems have not done anything. The Greens have not done anything. And the Conservatives are, of course, crushing whatever remains of human rights and human rights legislation and the foundation on which the treaties are signed. The treaties are still active, and the UK is still an active signatory to the international treaties. That began with the Treaty of Rome, 1950. And what I'm saying is that the Brexit confusion by Jeremy Corbyn illustrated the irrelevance of the Labour Party as a carrier of a fully fledged UK-wide agenda for government. Jeremy Corbyn did not spell out Brexit either way, as he made repeatedly clear. He was either way. He is not going to endorse it, he was not going to oppose it. How more pathetic can you get as the leader of the opposition party, so-called, in the mother of parliament, so-called? And so therefore we have got in Britain a pandemic, pandemonium. Pandemonium in government and pandemonium in opposition and pandemonium in parliament. So we have no real representation democratically for the people, for the community, and for the particularly targeted victims of the violations, as is illustrated currently by Shamima Begum. And the Town Council, which actually the borough that should have looked after Shamima Begum and prevented her from being brainwashed or radicalized, whatever process she actually went through, if she went through any process. Prevent is the literal key word. Prevent, instead of preventing radicalization, the money that was supposedly allocated to Towners Council to be spent in prevent program, a significant amount of that money was stolen by full-time employees of Towners Council youth service over the years. We have covered this before, but that is one of the other issues, that papers like the Archant owned East London Idiotizer or the Docklands and East London Advertiser and the Newham Recorder, they never touch on this. They never really explain how the council is failing and letting the community down. And that is where the role of the local papers, the role of the local media, mainstream media, is found wanting, lacking, and being negligent in relation to reporting the truth to and about the local community. Same thing happens with the kind of crisis that local people face. Security of building structures, like the collapse of the crane on the house where June Harvey was killed. We said murdered because we can elaborate on that. We'll come to that in another edition. So there is no outrage in the local papers. Only thing that the local paper, the Archant, has done is to give a number of paragraphs for rubbishy, self-serving excuses for the mayor in Tower Hamlets, John Biggs. And the East London idiotizer has become the Pravda for John Biggs. Now, the Pravda is the term that was unoriginally used by the likes of Eric Pickles when they wanted to discredit the then East End Lies, which was the title of the paper that I gave the name East End Lies as soon as it was actually launched about 20 years ago. But East End Lies was carrying too many positive items for the regime during the 5 calendar years that was fronted by the first elected mayor in Tower Hamlets, Lutfur Rahman. And they wanted to discredit that regime, not because they cared about the community, nor indeed did they care about the community's needs and rights to be told the truth about what the council was doing, but because they wanted to discredit what they saw as the Muslim mayor. Now, Lutfur could not be more detached from being a Muslim mayor, but there it is. His name is Lutfur Rahman, and he was associated with the thing called Islamic Forum Europe by Andrew Gilligan. In his dispatches, so-called documentary, aired at the end of February or beginning of March 2010, months before the so-called election took place in October 2020. Now, there has been no accounting, there has been no auditing, there has been no rigorous examination, timeline, diagnosis of how things went wrong in Tower Hamlets for the community by the imposition, by the foisting of an elected mayor post. And so, therefore, again, the same thing happened in Newham in relation to Newham Recorder, which allowed Robin Wells 16 years of blanket coverage, while he was never reported truthfully about the infliction of damage and harm and denials and deprivation, disenfranchisement and deregulation, degeneration that he foisted on the community in Newham. And in Tower Hamlets, the same thing happened with the East London Idiotizer. The Idiotizer did not publish any truth about the regime fronted by Lutfur Rahman, and it is not only not publishing any truth about the damage that the Biggs fronted regime is doing to the community in Tower Hamlets, but it is serving as a worse, more shameless propaganda outlet for Biggs than the East London Eastern Lies acted as in relation to promoting Lutfur Rahman. Now, either way, the community is being let down, betrayed, kept in darkness. And while a community is kept in darkness, democracy dies. And Tower Hamlets and Newham are two of the London boroughs, two of the most deprived London boroughs, English boroughs in England that have been homes or attempted homes of the most deprived, backgrounded people coming from Asia, mainly in these two boroughs coming from Bangladesh and Pakistan and India. So, what does it say about these communities, and how does the behavior of the Luton councillors who were caught doing a party or having a meal without any face coverings, and a party where they were not wearing the face coverings? How does that kind of behavior come about? And we shall be examining these things and showing how bogus, undemocratic, unaccountable the ethnicity-linked wannabes, councillors, MPs are to the relevant local communities whose demographic existence they exploit in order to get elected. This week, the Neom Recorder has carried a typical monthly or periodic plug for its local current local member on the GLA. This person actually is also the local member on the GLA for Tower Hamlets. His name is Unmesh Desai. It is spelled Unmesh Desai, Unmesh. Although it's a Sanskrit-based word, Unmesh, which is a different meaning, the Unmesh, when it is spelled in English, I mean, it shows that he is normally an inhabitant in a mesh, in a denial mesh, in a kind of darkness of his own creation. And it is, whenever his name is mentioned, it is another misleading promise that his self-imposed darkness is going to be brought into light. It never is. His latest contribution, carried by the Archant Neom Recorder, is a load of absolute balls, rubbish, inventions, fakery, and there is nobody. No letter is published by the Neom Recorder challenging Unmesh Desai or the two local MPs in Neom, Stephen Timms or Lynn Brown. Whatever they say, the Neom Recorder publishes, and no Neom voter or Neom activist actually is given or said to be given a reasonable, real space to challenge the evidence. On the basis of evidence, they challenge the collusion by these post holders with the regime of Roxana Fias. So this edition of the introductory to the diagnosis, exclusive diagnosis of the Neom Recorder is being ended at 1:58 UK time, which is midnight 58 GMT on Sunday, the 26th of July 2020.